What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
All right. Aloha, America. I'm not Mike Rivero. I will be sitting in here, and I've got Steve Elkins and Keith Rodgers with me as well. I want to briefly talk about the SpaceX launch because we are now a country with a manned space program again, such that we have commercial manned space travel. This is a momentous thing. When the last administration had shut down the manned space program, we had to hitch rides on rockets from other countries. It was kind of an embarrassment for a country that was out pioneering all the space stuff, being able to do these first, being the first to the moon and all this stuff. We're not going to be talking about the conspiracies and all that stuff, but yes, indeed, SpaceX was able to get that Dragon capsule up into orbit and over to the International Space Station, and the launch was beautiful. It went off without a hitch, and that technology they've got in that rocket is just amazing what they've been able to do. The reusable first stage. Dan, we're not wasting so much time and resource anymore on this stuff. We're able to reuse a lot of this stuff. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. I've got Steve Elkins with me and Keith Rodgers, and we're going to be talking a lot about what everybody has on their mind, all these riots and unrest and protests and stuff like that. And Steve has got some things to bring to us to talk about some inconsistencies that are wrong with this entire story. And we need to pay attention to this stuff because it kind of blows their narrative apart. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you doing? Keith, are you there?
Keith I'm here.
Good
evening.
Keith is there too.
The gang's all here.
It's nice working with you guys today. I'm glad to be a part of this broadcast today, and thanks for Michael Rivero for allowing us to come together today to kind of do a roundtable. And I've got some things to share, definitely with the listening audience. If you did not catch John Stadmiller's show last night, I was co-host, and I brought out the inconsistencies and abnormalities with this Officer Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. So I guess, Dave, you want me to just run down the list here and kind of
run down that list because that's on all of our minds here. This is headline news right now, and we need to get right into it. And what you've got is important because I heard the show yesterday, in case people had missed it, and we're on YouTube now. We've got the YouTube audience here. We're reaching a few more people. So, Steve, get into it.
Yeah, I'm speaking with some expertise here. I'm not this guy that just thinks has an idea. I've been in the medical field for 27, nearly 28 years as an ICU nurse, and first actually started off in my medical career as a EMT, emergency medical technician. So I'm going to be talking about that last video I got, my smoking gun that came to me from many, many listeners who, by the way, thank you listeners for sending me this information. I've been looking for this video for a while, and it finally came to me. So I broke it down and I broke it down and I broke it down. So I'll get into that in a little bit here, but I want to talk about the inconsistencies and abnormalities of this Officer Derek Chauvin and George Floyd that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, both of these individuals worked at a nightclub. Get this, they both worked at the same nightclub. The owner of that nightclub, who does not own that nightclub any longer, has come forward and said, I employed both these individuals. Now, Derek Chauvin worked security in the parking lot, while George Floyd actually did the security inside. He was kind of a bouncer or security inside the nightclub. Now, normally, anybody on a security detail team knows the inside guys and the outside guys. There's some sync there going on. They're synchronized. They know each other. They work with each other. They actually have to be on radio with the other guy in the parking lot and vice versa. So there is a relationship here between Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. That's been brought out. That is a fact. That's not something I just made up. So there's this whole idea that Officer Chauvin shows up at a convenience store and evidently doesn't recognize him, doesn't know him, and quickly handcuffs him and gets him to the ground and kneels on his neck. And you saw the video, around 8 minutes of leaning on the neck. We'll talk about that also. Shouldn't have never happened. You should have recognized him, said, hey, George, how you doing? It's been a while. We haven't worked together. What's going on here? Convenience called me on something. A discrepancy. They got a bill here you passed. It's a $20 bill. It's evidently counterfeit. Where'd you get the bills, George? Some questioning, follow-ups, because they have a relationship. They know each other. Well, that evidently didn't happen. That evidently did not happen. Quick to judgment, quick to handcuff, quick to get him to the ground, and the whole scenario took off. So that's an inconsistency. You should have known the individual. Second inconsistency is that evidently reporters had gone on the scene to Derek Chauvin's home and interviewed the neighbors, and the neighbors were quite shocked. The next door neighbors were quite shocked and saying, "We saw it on TV, but we did not know it was him." We realized, hey, that's our neighbor. That's Derek. I didn't know he was a police officer. Now, I don't know about you. I've lived next door to police officers, firemen, a lot of people in medical, and you kind of know that.
Oh yeah,
that
you
person
definitely know, because I have also had friends and neighbors. I've got lots of friends on the force, and they will eventually come home in uniform or come home on lunch break in their squad car because they're out of time. Even if they try to, keep it, a secret, it's not a secret. And you see the radios, you see the antennas, even the unmarked cars. People that pay attention know this stuff, and we're actually very happy most of the time to have the law enforcement professionals in our neighborhoods because we feel a little bit safer knowing that they're there. So that is kind of ridiculous. You're right to point that out.
Well, you know that also under firemen dresses as a fireman and paramedics and people in the medical field. I mean, if you look at my house, who comes to my house? Well, doctors come to my house. They're in lab coats. A lot of other nurses come in scrubs to my house. And so it's not rocket science to look over at my house and go, hey, Steve must be in the medical profession. There's a lot of people coming to his house that look like they belong in a hospital. So this isn't rocket science. But the very idea that the next door neighbors did not know he was a police officer is very puzzling to me. I scratch my head on that because that's an obvious, like I said, the squad car coming home, leaving to work in a uniform, coming home in a uniform, unless you're a undercover cop or a plainclothes cop, which he was not because we saw him in a uniform. There's no excuse for not knowing that. And we find out that the neighbors say, well, we thought he was in real estate. I don't know where they came up with that, but they evidently were very stunned to find out their next door neighbor is a police officer, and now he's in the national news with this whole scenario, this crisis going on. That's an odd thing. The third part here I wanted to talk about was the video of the EMTs arriving on the scene. Now, like I said, I started off as an EMT. In my training as an EMT, and that was a long time ago. It hasn't changed any. They drill some things in your head. You get a written test and you got a practical test here. And one of the things they drill into your head are called the ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. Okay, that also goes along with CPR, the circulation part of it. So when you get on a scene of an accident or something like that, of this nature here, the first thing the EMTs or paramedics do is assess responsiveness. They may ask out, hey, can you respond? Can you talk? Can you do this? They find out responsiveness. And next thing they do is, if they're not responding, they pretty much do vital signs. They check oxygenation to see if they're breathing. They check the pulse to see if there's a circulation going on. We saw a little bit of a pulse check. I counted 1,000, 1,000, and the finger came off. Normally, a pulse check on the carotid artery there would be between a minimum of 5 seconds and a maximum of 10 seconds. Now, none of this stuff was done. None of this stuff was done. And this is the point I'm making. These two individuals that arrived on the scene were not medical. They were not paramedics. They were not EMTs. They failed every protocol that I learned in the field as an EMT or paramedic or in the hospital setting. It hasn't changed. ABCs still apply: airway, breathing, circulation. Responsiveness is the first thing. So they failed miserably. Which is interesting is that Sean Hannity had pointed out one little part of it. He's a very poor reporter, a very poor journalist, in that he said, well, they didn't do much on the scene for the guy. And supposedly he died later on, or he may have been dead on the scene. But the point being, he did point it out. But a good researcher, a good journalist would have said, well, how come they didn't do more on the scene? Why didn't they check his oxygenation? Now, we have a little tool that we carry around with us in the hospital. EMTs carry them around, paramedics carry them around. It's called a pulse oximeter. And you've seen these things. You've gone to a doctor's office and they slapped a little thing on your fingernail there on your finger, and it goes through the nail bed and it reads your oxygenation.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Everybody has one. I have one. I carry it around with me. And the belt of a EMT or a paramedic is pretty loaded. These guys carry around a lot of stuff. So when you look at these pictures, these two guys in tan, they're clearly not medical professionals. They're either crisis actors that were hired. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Crisis actors that were hired that had no education in medical procedure at all, knowing nothing, absolutely nothing about protocol. And we're just trying to play a part and pass off as if they were professionals. Like I said, oxygen, baby. You got to put oxygen on people right away. They can actually talk over the mask, but you got to put oxygen on people. And I saw them. They didn't do any of that at all. Nothing like that at all. And they did this kind of a half-assed turn the head log roll type situation to put him on the gurney. Well, that's another protocol they broke right there. We normally stabilize the neck, the cervical vertebrae, and it takes several people to do so. One stabilizing the jaw and the head. The other one slides a seat collar underneath the neck, secures the vertebrae, the cervical vertebrae, and so there's no jarring of the neck. You don't know where you are in the situation.
Oh, exactly. That is so important, Steve, because they don't know exactly what injuries this person has and what state they're in. And in order to keep any potential spinal injuries from being absolutely permanent and irreversible, they've got to take great care in doing this. The people that you were seeing on this video obviously were not concerned with trying to make sure George Floyd remained alive and well and healthy, because they didn't do any of those things. And if they were real EMTs, they were probably negligent, because maybe just possibly he could have been saved. Maybe he wasn't completely dead yet. We don't really know just exactly what was going on. And that's the point. When the EMTs get there, they don't know. And you always err on the side of caution in trying to save lives.
That's right. So they skipped that protocol of stabilizing the cervical vertebrae. And normally what you would do when you do this, you do it in unison. You actually have three people. You do the cervical vertebrae, you stabilize the neck with a seat collar, and then you actually have one at the head that continues to keep traction on the head, the neck, the cervical vertebrae. One's in the middle, center body of the body, the thorax, and one does the legs, the hip, and beyond the legs. And you actually do it in sync. You go 1, 2, 3, log roll, turn. The gurney comes under, or the spine board comes underneath the patient there, and you actually strap him to the board. You strap him to the board. You didn't see a spine board, by the way, and you secure the body, the person, to the spine board, and then once again you get a second stabilization of the cervical vertebrae over the forehead with a strap to the board itself, and then you carefully pick the person up, you put him on a gurney, and you put him in the ambulance. Nothing was happening here. The protocols for taking care of this kind of patient were totally ignored. Let me give you a little example here. Now, when I took my boards, you fail automatically on the practical if you skip any of the steps upon coming on a trauma. Responsiveness, airway, breathing, circulation. If you mess them up, you get an automatic fail. See in a couple months, you'll have to take a refresher course. I saw people who were very competent who froze in the practical, screwed the practical up, and failed getting their license and had to come back in a couple months. So they are very stern on this. They drill this into your head. They are called the protocols: airway, breathing, circulation, and first of all, responsiveness, the first part of that before the ABCs. So they skipped every protocol you can possibly think of when these guys came to pick him up. Now, think of it this way here. If you're a fireman and you go to a fire here and you hook up to the fire hydrant, you roll your hose out, and you turn the spigot on the hose and you're trying to put the fire out, and you go, wait a minute here, I forgot to turn the spigot on the fire hydrant on, and then you got to run back. This is kind of what we saw here. These guys didn't have a clue what was going on medical-wise. These were not EMTs. They were not paramedics. Let me repeat that again. These were not EMTs. They were not paramedics. These were actors playing a part. And they didn't fool me one bit. I found that very, very, very fast, quick to find. These guys are not medical. They failed every protocol, every one. Now, let me tell you one last thing I just noticed the other day, because I watched it again, in that bodily functions. When somebody actually dies, two things give away: your bowels. It's usually the bladder first, urinary retention. You stop, you let loose, you urinate on yourself, and then there's the second part of letting loose of your bowels, fecal matter. I noticed when they turned him over, he was limp and everything. He either played it really well, or he was dead, or was that doesn't make much sense, because his bowels did not release. The front of his pants were not wet. There was nothing there to say that this guy was dead. like I said, they skipped every protocol that they've ever learned. If you were an EMT, a true EMT or a paramedic, they skipped every protocol. They did what we call a scoop and run. Now, scoop and run is okay, kind of in a way, if you're not in the medical field. And if I happen to be along the road here, I'll still do the ABCs as much as I can. But if I'm going to get you to a hospital and they're not going to get here in a long time, I may do a scoop and run, pick you up and put you in my car and rush to the hospital. But I'm probably still going to go through the steps of the ABCs, airway, breathing, and circulation. Yeah. These guys didn't do any of that. Then they kind of left the parking lot. The lights turned on. No siren turned on, just the lights turned on. And they kind of took their time leaving the scene. This all doesn't make sense in the real world. This was scripted. These were actors. And I'm also concerned about the little pudgy Asian mall cop that was blocking the recording. I'm not sure why nobody decided to go around the other side and take from different angles. There's no way he could have blocked all the views. The little pudgy Asian guy there, it looks like a mall cop. There's no way he could have blocked all the different angles for video recording this. And you keep hearing this one guy saying, bro, bro, bro. That was annoying. But the point is they could have gone to different positions and gotten some really good video footage on that. Another thing I would like to ask is, since there are video cameras on every corner, Dave and Keith, where's the video covering this? Where's the video that showed what actually happened from the beginning to what happened at the end there? Where's the video footage? It's kind of like the video footage from the Pentagon disappearing that was confiscated, taken away, because we didn't get a chance to see what actually hit the Pentagon. There's a lot of video footage that must have been turned off or confiscated by now. But that's only spells out that there was a cover up, and this is not a clean situation here. This is tainted. This has all been scripted. These are probably crisis actors, but that's pretty much where I found the video left me at. Was they skipped every protocol, not just one or out of order. Dave, Keith, they actually skipped all the protocols. So these couldn't have been medical professional at all. Not one.
Definitely smells very fishy, because like you said, they're trained, and I know EMTs and professionals in this field, and they live and they breathe it. They are programmed. It's muscle memory. They do it without thinking about it, because they do it every single day, over and over and over and over and over again. And you know, if they had better crisis actors and they actually understood the fields, they could pull this stuff off quite a bit better.
Yeah, they could. They could. If they'd educated them, they could have.
Yeah, there's not much to it. And instead, you know, we have all of this stuff going on, and as a result of, well, we don't really know exactly what the heck happened. It becomes fishier and fishier. The more information that's been coming out, the more we have to take a step back and go, wait a minute. You know, we had this knee-jerk reaction to go, we need to go violently protest and burn things down and break things, you know, for why exactly? Because we'd already had gotten to the point that the officer was arrested and he was being brought to justice. I mean, the justice is kind of slow. These things take a long time. I mean, before it's all said and done, years can go by. That's just our speedy trial that we have here in this country. It is what it is. So we have to be a little bit more patient and not fly off the handle. We have been baited into this, and guess what? It took this time. They did this before with Ferguson. That they did it before with the Trayvon Martin thing, over and over and over again. They need to divide and conquer. They need us fighting amongst each other, so we don't figure out, hey, wait a minute, we've been hoodwinked and all this other stuff, and we've got a common enemy, and maybe we start to heal the divide and start to come together and work together in a peaceful way to rebuild our country, to be able to kick these criminals out. We can't have that now, can we? Well, it is what it is. Hey, we're reaching the end of the first segment here, so we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back after the music gets done playing. And so anyway, with that, we'll be right back. Enjoy the messages. 3 minutes, and we'll be reaching. Well, Mike Rivero is on vacation. This is Etheric Dave. We've got Steve Elkins and Keith Rodgers. And Steve, I think you have another point you wanted to get to real quick.
Yeah, I did. Looking over the video again, I want to mention they talked about it was that it was asphyxiation. He died from suffocating. And looking at the video, watching the video, his head was turned off to the side, and where the knee was placed actually was placed not in, it wasn't compressing the trachea whatsoever, impeding gas exchange. Actually, where his knee was placed was on the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which would not impede the airway whatsoever. He had his head turned to the side, and he was actually kneeling on the sternocleidomastoid. Now, that's pretty dang close to the carotid artery there. And somebody said, well, maybe he blacked out because you're compressing the carotid. That would be possible to kind of black out if the other carotid on the other side, which would have been his right carotid, had some occlusion. Then that's possible. We do understand he had some heart. They're telling us he had some heart problems, coronary artery disease or something like that. So hypoxia could actually cause a myocardial event, myocardial infarction. He could have had a heart attack, but I'm not sure. Like I said, everything is just not pointing in the right direction to say this was even legit. That video was so flawed in that the crisis actors were not very educated in doing their part, playing the part of an EMT or a paramedic. But the knee pressure was on the sternocleidomastoid, which would have not cut off the trachea, not cut off the airway whatsoever. I wanted to point that out. And I did watch a little bit of the body movement, and his knee did not give full pressure. If you look, he was restraining himself, pulling back a little bit. I know full pressure on a knee on the ground on somebody. I worked in psychiatric before. When you have to hold people down, you have to put some brutal force down, especially people who are really fighting you. And of course, we saw that George Floyd was not fighting back whatsoever. So that knee was pulled up, but it was placed over the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which would not impair gas exchange, his breathing. It would not compress his trachea in any way. So that was false right there. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, well, you pointed a lot of stuff out with that, and you certainly shot a lot of holes in that. And it's not surprising. We've seen a lot of staged events one after the other. This isn't anything new. This seems to be right in their playbook. They seem to be a little bit too prepared for all of this to happen. Let's get some comments from Keith on here. You've been quiet so far. What do you have to say?
Well, there was other video that came out, and the one was shot from behind the scene where it showed two more additional officers, one at his waistline and one toward his feet. And the video showed at first where they pulled the guy out and pulled his mask down and maced him in the face. Which is interesting about this is because there's other videos across the country where the cops have been doing the same thing, is pulling the face mask down to get a clear shot to go ahead and mace someone directly in the face. And you may recall a couple of years back when they had that line of protesters just sitting there, and the cops were walking by with a mace can, just macing them right in the face. And so that was kind of suspicious to me. But the person that was filming that video I was talking about, which at the time I didn't think nothing of, was anyway, the guy's filming it, and then it looks like someone is being filmed from a cell phone apparently. Anyway, it looks like someone grabbed his arm or something like that and pushed him away because he was recording the backside of that vehicle, which would have shown those other two officers that were at the waist and at the feet. So to me, this is more of what they call a mark, to where this has all been pre-planned. And then there was the other officer that was involved, which I had a video for, but because it's laden with the F words and stuff like that, we can't play it. But he is sitting in a Prowler car after the effect, and he says to that this George guy was a actor, and that he was surprised they murdered this actor. And to me, again, this is like when I look at these videos of cops grabbing bricks and throwing them on their Prowler cars and smashing their windows, and other ones that are just busting in their front windshields and stuff, and other cops looting stores and stuff. Now, this has all been captured on video. And what's going to be interesting is, as this settles down more and more, you'll find out that more videos will surface which will contradict the official story anyway. So A lot of people are still at these protests and stuff, and will eventually get home and start downloading or uploading their videos. And I think that we'll probably see some censorship here, really, when that kicks in.
You know, I have one comment to make to that, Keith, is that the possibility here. Now, we saw that one officer, the pudgy Asian police officer, the mall cop, was trying to block the recording of the event itself, and nobody wanted to go around the backside here. And I'm going to tell you a possibility here was we saw kind of a limp George Floyd at the end there when they put him on the gurney, and he could have surely played dead, held his breath and played dead. There's no doubt about it. You can do that. You can act limp and play dead. That's why they didn't do the pulse ox. We might have clued in and seen the pulse ox, the numbers saying, 95% or something. But what I think was happening, what possibly might have happened here, the blocker himself, the pudgy Asian police officer, was blocking because
let's take a quick break. We'll get right back to you here after this break. We'll pick it back up when we return. All right, welcome back here. What really happened on RBN? Steve, you were saying.
Yeah, that the officers didn't use the pulse oximeter, to check the oxygenation, and they probably didn't for good reason, because we probably would have clued in there, looked at the oxygenation of George Howard, and probably may have seen that he was above 90%, which if somebody's not breathing, which means he was holding his breath or he was faking it, would have been, that doesn't match the oxygenation of somebody who is not breathing. If you're not breathing, your oxygenation is really, really low. You're not picking up much of anything. Matter of fact, you can't pick up anything beyond a certain percentage of oxygenation. But let's say they put that probe on the end of the finger there, and we got a visual of that on video to say, what, he's 94%. Well, how's that possible for a guy who's not breathing? That wouldn't be. So what I think might have happened here, the blocker himself, the pudgy Asian police officer there, the mall cop, was blocking to make sure we could not see what was going on behind him, of course. But what could have been going on is something right out of the WWF playbook here. A little thing they do is called coding, stimuli coding, where they do a little nudge and a pinch here, giving you a signal to do something or carry out something. So this whole thing of him appearing to be limp and not breathing and dead. You can hold your breath, and certainly you can play dead and be limp and let them do all the work and picking you up and taking you away. But that not putting the pulse ox, the oximeter on, is would have probably tripped him up, because we would have caught that on a visual to say we could have clued in on that, brought it in, zoomed it in, and say, how is it possible a guy who's not breathing or playing dead is 94, 95, 96% oxygenation? That's impossible. See, that would have tripped him up. Maybe that's why they didn't pull out the oximeter itself. But like I said, they skipped every protocol from an EMT and a paramedic. I was there, been there, done all this stuff, and it's still the same protocol we use in the ICU or anywhere in the hospital. It's responsiveness, airway, breathing, circulation. They did not do one of these. And that one half-assed 2-second feeling of a pulse on the carotid, it's a minimum of 5 seconds and a maximum of 10 seconds. And then you make a decision what you're going to do. And placing oxygen on somebody, supplemental oxygen on somebody, is always a good way to go. Despite if they have good oxygenation or not, it can't hurt you to have more oxygen on. So, like I said, they avoided every protocol. Every protocol that I've ever learned was avoided. These were not medical personnel. They either were flunky police officers, were volunteered for this and got some extra pay, or these were crisis actors, but they were not medical professionals.
I want to see the dispatch records, Steve, to see who was actually dispatched on that, where the calls came from, because all of these things are tracked. All the 911 calls are recorded. There should be some records here where we can point to it, and we can actually tell you exactly which crew showed up. If this is a real ambulance and it was a real people, we'll know exactly who these folks are and when they responded, and there'll be a record of all of this, and we'll be able to point at it and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? And you're absolutely right about what you said about, people not being able to fake the pulse ox for holding their breath. Try holding your breath to make that pulse ox go down, and I guarantee the involuntary reaction will kick in, and you will start breathing again, because the body is designed such that when it needs oxygen, it's you're not going to be able to hold your breath for too long. It just doesn't work that way.
No,
All
I
right.
think that's why they blocked the sides from us videotaping or somebody videotaping. But
Yeah.
the backside, somebody should have been able to do that. But maybe there was a blocker there too. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and
I do believe that there was some coding going on.
I want to see the unedited body cam footage. I want to see all the various security cam footage around, because the security cameras are ubiquitous. They're absolutely everywhere. And, who knows, what other bystanders might have been, filming all this stuff. We need to get all the evidence together before we run off the handles and start breaking things, before we know actually what's really gone on, because that is stupid to just knee-jerk reaction. Okay, so somebody got killed, boom, we need to go burn everything down and freak out. It's kind of odd though that bricks were being delivered to places, and this has been stated. And when we caught agent provocateurs in there breaking windows and starting fires, that that turns out they're cops. Just look at the shoes, all the cop shoes, on this stuff. There's lots of videos out on YouTube. If you spend a little bit of time doing your own research on this, don't just take our word for it, but download all this footage and look at it for yourself and try to put your own analysis to it, and you'll see that the official story doesn't make any sense at all, and what they're trying to spin is anything but. And again, time and time again, agent provocateurs getting in there and breaking things and getting it kicked off, and then once everything's burning and all the looting started, everybody just kind of piles on, their followers. Oh, this is all so disgusting. Keith, call me down here, tell me something good.
Okay, well, I have a clip for you here first, but I want to preface this by a video I watched out of London here about 2.5 weeks ago, and I downloaded it somewhere, and I have not retrieved it because I didn't think of the name of it at the time. I just said, oh, I had to save that. But anyway, it was of one of the nurses at this so-called coronavirus outbreak over there, with all these alleged massive deaths there. And as she's explaining things, she says, yes, we haven't infected enough yet. And that was kind of weird. Well, Britain is set to pass a law there which is going to basically chomp down on all journalism. And we see this fascist rule as it comes to power more and more across the Western world, that journalists are being targeted. It doesn't matter whether you're Julian Assange or what like that. They are losing the narrative, the governments, that is, and in doing so, they have to, well, I mean, you have to look at this, as we just got done discussing here, with millions of cell phones out there, it is hard to keep a accurate description of what the government wants you to know compared to what you actually physically see. And that's why on a crime scene or something, usually a cop who arrives 15, 20, 40 minutes later, he's the one that's talking to the journalist, giving an official report, and they never ask the other people that were on the street exactly what happened there, because it's not going to the channels. So with that, I want to play this 2-minute, 15-second clip. And this is why I think this George was a mark. And since he had a working relationship with the other officer there, that it just seems hinky, as I guess you call it. So I'll go ahead and I'll run this clip here.
You were mentioning a while ago, it's not only just the CIA, but it's others too. We had a program recently, which you may remember, about the Greensboro massacres, in which the Klan and the Nazis, in broad daylight and in front of TV cameras, shot down 5 labor organizers and killed them in Greensboro, North Carolina. It came out by the investigations that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms agents was working with the Nazis. Indeed, he was the one who gave them the names of the people to be shot. Also, there was FBI and local police complicity with the Klan members. As a matter of fact, it's come out that the FBI itself established over 40 chapters of the Klan over the years in North Carolina alone. These revelations would be a felony now.
Yeah, it would, exactly.
If this passes.
It would be a felony to reveal such information to the American public. Or government of, by, and for the people is soon to be a thing of the past in the United States.
What this will do is to put the CIA, the FBI, and these other government agencies outside of the realm of public criticism and even discussion.
Or law.
Yeah,
outside of the law,
Right.
because they've broken every law of man and God in the activities they have conducted, the experimentation on American citizens, for example, with chemicals and disease, the propaganda of the United States, breaking and entering, Colonel White's famous words about where else can a red-blooded boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage in the name of the All-Highest. Now they will be able to...
Who was this?
This was Colonel George M. White, one of the founders of the CIA, who eventually directed the MK Ultra program.
Oh.
And he was retiring. He and I overlapped by about 4 years. He came out of retirement to address my mid-career seminar and telling about how we put the CIA together and we did this, that, and the other. In his letters, memoirs, he wrote and then allowed it to be published, that statement. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the blessings of the All-Highest?
And what gets me about this here is when you see Secretary Pompeo talking about having a live drill, and then, of course, Donald Trump leans over to him and says, "You should have told us." And then we have Secretary Pompeo, who also, during that Senate meeting there, refuses to answer whether or not the coronavirus was a hoax. And it seems like, again, that this coronavirus is no longer an issue now. Now it's this racism here. And George Webb here just recently posted a video here which talks about how the Soros campaign, as well as all these democratically held blue states, are the ones that seem to be having all the problem. And again, this is been set up for all those areas. And again, a delayed opening of the states, the United States there. So to me, it's like the George was a mark, but apparently all of those constituents and the civilians in that area, they are also the mark because they're getting played right now.
Yeah, it would certainly look like it. It's not like this hasn't happened before. This is right out of their playbook and doing the same thing, staging all this stuff. How long are we going to put up with this kind of stuff? Because this has got to stop one way or the other. And we're not going to stop it by getting out in the streets and rioting and being violent and stuff like that. I think the way we stop this is what we're doing right here. We shine the bright spotlight of truth on it and make sure we dispel all of these things where nobody believes it anymore, where we all become skeptical, where we need to have the verification and the truth behind all this stuff. Steve, what do you have to say about all this?
Well, COVID-19, the coronavirus, is kind of fading now where the cases are going down. And we know they've been padded greatly. I said them from the very beginning. The second wave, they're telling us that the second wave of the coronavirus was coming, was just a period of time to buy more time to actually pad that number, to actually come close, either reach or surpass Anthony Fauci's last numbers of 125,000. And with padding the number, they probably will reach 125,000. Now, the number, probably the true accurate number, is probably less than half of that. Are true cases that actually killed somebody, the COVID-19 virus itself. We know that for a fact. Hospitals got a greater incentive to label everything they possibly could. They were told to. Doctors were told to be lax about it. Just say it's COVID-19. You get more financial gain from it, having that diagnosis than the true diagnosis. Everything was kind of getting tossed on the COVID-19 bandwagon there for total numbers for death. In the period of announcing that the pandemic had started to whenever they decide to stop it, anything in between got tossed onto the pile. So they need these numbers big, because if they didn't have big numbers, we would all scratch our heads and say, what? You had less numbers than the regular flu dying from the COVID-19, and you shut down the entire country? You ruined our economy for 35,000 people? This would have not looked well. The agenda would have been exposed right away.
Perhaps.
And then people would have been asking more questions and say, how'd this happen? It would have gone, there have been a long trail to figure out who pulled off this scamdemic, this plandemic that they did pull off. So they had to reach these numbers, but the numbers are actually going down. And I don't think they're ready for us to go back out. They wanted us to stay locked down until they told us. Some states were opening up, other states saying, no, we're locking down. And that's usually the Democrat states are saying we're staying closed. Republican states are saying, well, we'll start to open up now. But I don't think they're quite ready for us to go back out again. So they had to manufacture something else. And a race crisis here now is a perfect situation all around the country. We're having race riots, all this stuff going on. So people stay home, don't go out, don't do your jobs, lock down again for another crisis that's coming your way. Even in my area here, which is strange, they shut down the mall, they shut down the grocery stores, a couple other, the Builders Square, Home Depot shut down. They were all worried about rioters and looters. Now we have nothing out here where I live. There's nothing. So why did they shut down? But this fear factor, they're getting a whole new fear factor out there on this race riot thing here, and they're trying to shut us down and keep us back in our houses again.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they're going to try to do. And if the surge of cases that they managed to fictitiously pop up there, they'll be able to blame it on the protesters. And even if it doesn't happen, they'll be able to say, well, the reason that the numbers weren't all that big that we had, feared and all that stuff is because we locked everything down, and it was all these extreme measures of banning personal contact and locking you in your houses, and that's the reason our heroic efforts are, why it didn't go absolutely, pandemic and kill everybody. That they were talking about it killing millions of people, then they kept revising the numbers, they keep revising the numbers, and there's been no consistency to any of it. Keith, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a week and a half before that, we had this AR-15 shooting down in Arizona, and that their video has been dissected there of what was, again, alleged by the state to happen. And now we see that there's been a couple officers shot. And I think we're going to see another massive gun push here, because these communists that are taking over this country, they're the ones that are after this agenda. I have that audio file of Eric Holder that talks about having to brainwash people into giving up their guns, and they're doing that through the school systems. What we're seeing is a war between three fractions: the fascism, the socialism, and the communism, and it's all going to conjoin into one troika to bring this country down, because the entire world even knows this. Even Peter Schiff says that the U.S. dollar is going down. There is no way that the Fed can resurrect any of this stuff. So they need a massive distraction to roll out this digital currency or digital reset or something like that. And Steve is going to talk about that tainted money here and stuff. But there's just something afoot here. And believe me, if they're willing to start wars and kill millions of people elsewhere, as well as sacrifice 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 of their own, or in the case of Vietnam, 58,000, they have no problem killing their own people at home to push an agenda.
Not at all. And when we see this, it's not just one agenda, though, Keith. There's a bunch of different agendas at play. And that's part of the big, gigantic problem with it all, this one agenda after the other. And I think we're getting kind of sick of all of the different agendas in here. Okay, we should be having some music coming up here for the break. So when we come back, we'll have another segment. And then after that, we'll open up the phone lines. So stand by. We got a few words, got to pay the bills here. All right, welcome back, everybody. What really happened here on RBN? Please support the network. 800. I don't remember what the I have it in the speed dial. Just go to republicbroadcasting.org, and I'll get you some of the information for the donations in there, because we're always in constant need of money. This is the small money trying to get together to counter all the big money liars. And we're talking about all the various agendas, at foot, and there's plenty enough agendas being serviced. And it's funny how none of the people's agenda seems to be being serviced here. Wow, get all sorts of messed up on this stuff. This is just kind of bad stuff. We'll be taking phone calls in the next hour, 800-313-9443, so you can start loading up, but we won't be taking them until after the first of the hour when we come back from the break. A very short one at that. And Keith, I think you wanted to say something else regarding all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think we're in one of the biggest psyops that you could probably pull on America right now, because like yesterday, the United States started bombing inside Syria again. And then, of course, the MOD in Russia come out and announce that they're going to set up a permanent base over there in Syria. And then on top of that, and this is what really gets me, is Secretary Pompeo talking about the autonomy of Hong Kong when China passes new security measures over there. And this, to me, I mean, even on the cusp of hearing that, while they're sitting there spending $200 and some million financing Juan Guaido down there in Venezuela to destroy a legally elected government. The same thing with a legally elected government in Syria. There's also news now out of Ukraine here, and they're those on Twitter, friends of mine and stuff, which are equating this to Newland's cookies, that they're trying the same thing here in America as they did with Victoria Newland, walking around supplying, or you imagine the amount of money they spent, $5 billion in overthrowing the Ukraine government in that coup, and then of course a little basket of cookies from Victoria Newland. But I think Americans should look at the fact here that while we're being distracted domestically, you have to look at what's being done in the foreign policy here, because with the Trump administration pumping up the oil markets for there's no commerce, so why have all the oil, but because it backs a petrodollar, and the US's relationship with Saudi Arabia is souring right now, they may be scapegoated here because of those recent leaks, which ties Saudi Arabia to 9/11, who financed part of the 9/11 deal, that I think that they are about ready to start something here, and this is all going to be a distraction. And then suddenly, of those 50 million basically unemployed workers, mainly most of them young burger flippers, are going to wake up and find themselves conscripted into a war.
Yep, it certainly looks like it. Steve, you got any thoughts for us here before we reach the top of the hour? Well, actually, hold that thought, Steve. I'll come right back to you right after the first, and then we'll start taking some phone calls. 800-313-9443. We'll be right back on What Really Happened on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Well, I'm not Michael Rivero, and I am Etheric Dave, and I got Steve Elkins right along, also Keith Rodgers. Okay, to donate to the network, you can call 800-724-2719, extension 1 from 1 to 6 p.m., Monday to Thursday, extension 3 at all other times. Or you could send cash, check, money order, or gold, silver, or whatever to 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. And please support the network, because we need to get all the small money together to be able to counter the big money liars. That is so important to be able to keep us on the air here. Steve, you were starting to say something right as the top of the hour break kicked in, so let me get to your comment here, and then we'll start taking some calls.
Sounds great. No, I agree with Keith 100%. We are seeing so many psyops right now. It's difficult to decide or figure out what's real and what's been manufactured. There's so much going on. Now, the video on the crisis here, the black-white thing here with the police officer and George Floyd was pretty easy to pick out. Like I said, that video to me said it was staged. It was a staged crisis. These are actors. They were not medical personnel at all. But it's difficult nowadays. And if you understand the use of false flags by this government and many other governments, I'm not going to say the United States is the only government that uses false flags, but for some reason, I don't know, the mentality of somebody who actually carries out a false flag and will actually target their own people in order to carry out an agenda. No consciousness. I don't know how they brainwash people to do these things, to target their own citizens for an agenda to go into another country or target them. But I do believe false flags are very much a part of U.S. foreign policy. They seem to carry them out all the time, and they carry them out on a broad level, and they carry them out here locally on agendas. Just what's going on right now. This may be part of a psyop here. This is also a false flag event. What's going on with this racial crisis thing here, but getting back to real quick here, what Keith was mentioning about our currency here, and yeah, all these things are being done in the name of our currency. A lot of it foreign was because we just can't have people leaving centralized banking. We must keep them on trading on the old U.S. dollar here, and of course the petrodollar. We must keep them on our system because, well, that's making some people really, really rich. But talking about the currency going digital, it's going to happen. They've been pushing this for a while, and they will have the perfect excuse now to actually push us to a digital currency because you've got this nasty, filthy, bacteria-laden, virus-laden, fungi-laden, fecal-laden currency that you have in your hands, in your wallet, in your pants, and you just can't carry around these bacteria traps. So we must put everything now in a digital currency. Of course, once they do that, you no longer have control of your finances. They control it for you, and they can certainly use it to leverage for their debt that they're going to create later on. I mean, all this money, this stimulus money, they just keep handing out. Have you met anybody who actually understands that what you're doing right now is devaluing the currency? You're devaluing our dollar here.
Yeah.
You're going to have
Big
massive
time.
inflation.
That's not just subtle. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in the Federal Reserve, budget. They're just buying everything up, and all the assets are going to their ownership through money created out of thin air. It's just an absolute scam. All right, let's go ahead and table that topic for another time, because that is a big one, and it is probably at the core of all of it, because all of this stuff is usually at the behest of the bankers. And I think that there's a strong tie to why the pandemic went off in the first place, to cover all the financial fraud, so we would be willing to bail them out again. Great. But anyway, we need to get to the calls here. Tom in Florida, what's on your mind? Tom in Florida.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're on the air. What's on your mind, brother?
Okay, yeah. I want to let Steve know this. I'm sure he knows. Polk County, the sheriff in Polk County, Florida, already said that anybody tries to do any rioting or looting over there, they'll be shot, and every homeowner in that county has a gun. And the sheriff's been given them permission to shoot if you start any kind of arson or any kind of thing. The sheriff over there is the way this whole country should be run. Second Amendment. But here's what I really want to talk to you gentlemen about, and I want you all to do something about it. Have you ever heard these? I'm going to give you 4 names. I know if you heard about them. Have you ever heard of Justine Dunnard? Have you ever heard of Paddington Houston? And have you ever heard of Cinnamon Christian and Brian Newsom? Have you ever heard those 4 names before?
I've heard
the Newsom one.
Yeah, not all of it.
Who they are.
All right.
I'm going to give you. They're all white people who are brutally murdered by Afro-Americans. The media never says hardly anything about it. If you look at the story of Cinema Christian and Brian Newsom, I want you to Google it on your computer when you got time today and read the story about what that young couple went through. I want you to read the story about Paddington Harrington in Alabama when she was taken out of a bar because she went out to smoke a joint with some guys at a bar she met, Tin Roof, and they took her and they raped her for 6 weeks and they found her body in a shallow grave. Where was the rioting in Alabama? Where was the rioting in Tennessee? And where was the rioting in Minnesota by this guy, Mohammed Noor, who shot a white Australian blonde-haired woman to death? And where was the rioting for that, gentlemen? But our country's being blown up right now. Trump should call in the military, the 101st Airborne, and this got to stop in the stiff. I looked at the FBI statistics. Have any of you guys checked out the FBI statistics on black on white crime?
Oh, we know. Tom.
Okay.
We know. Hey, well, let me talk here for a minute here. We know about this. That they're not going to be talking about the black on white crime and the black on black crime because it's not expeditious to get this agenda thing. They are doing all these things and have been doing these things for decade after decade to heat these things up for an agenda. They want to divide us. They want this racism thing to divide black from white, from brown, from yellow, from all of it. So we're all fighting amongst each other. So we don't realize that we've got a common enemy. And dealing with all this with more violence is only going to play into their hand. They want us to be violent. They want us to be shooting each other. We need to spotlight this stuff and bring this stuff out in front of everyone. Everyone needs to see this and know that we are being lied to about all this stuff, and we are only being fed the stuff that is going to incite violence and destruction.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I interject something?
Yeah, Keith, go ahead and interject.
Yeah, Tom, I enjoy your calls into all these various shows here, and I think you're getting misled here. What I'd like to ask is for you to do me a favor. There's a video on YouTube called The End of the World as We Know It, and the author of a book, his name is Mark Steyn, Steyn. And in that, he talks about this population displacement. And he goes on, he's from Massachusetts, he's a journalist, and which was interesting. I was shocked to hear that Americans are paying for Germany's health care where they can't afford for their own, as well as Americans are paying for the Nazis in Ukraine to be transported to Germany to have them fixed. But anyway, in his video talk that he gives, he talks about all these immigrants coming in, and they're being brought in directly by their own governments. And that's why if you look up the UN forced migration, you'll see that this is all a pattern. And what it is, Tom, is because the white people have stopped having babies. They have foregone their futures. Usually this starts in their young careers because they put off getting married and like that, and they go on to college, they get saddled with massive debt, and then they figure, well, hell, I can't even get married now because I got so much debt. But anyway, where you normally saw, like in Ireland, five pubs in a row or something like that, these are all being removed because they offend the Muslims and stuff. It's the same thing with churches and everything. But this is directly being brought out, and he does a very good job on this. And again, it's called The End of the World as We Know It, to where the governments are doing this to make up for that population of whites or white Europeans and such, to be able to proliferate their own social structure, to keep the money coming in for the retirees, to keep the taxes, to keep the countries going. So this, again, it's nice for us to sit here and claim ourselves as victims all the time, but realize it's the governments that are behind this. And that UN forced migration article there, it says that, I forget, by 2040 or something like that, they say that America is going to have 1 point some odd billion people in it. This is their plan. And it's going to be by pushing the races together. And of course, the other agenda is these racial tensions there. And George Webb in his recent video talks about the color revolution. This time is black. It's been a different one across Libya. Egypt. They are using the races to fit their agenda, and this is the real crux of the matter here. So you might want to check out that video.
Okay, Tom.
Mr. Rodgers, I'll do that. Mr. Rodgers, I want to say something. I heard you a few times on the radio, and some things I agree with you, and some things I don't, like we all do. But as far as this goes with Donald Trump, he's the one that brought up on stage the angel mothers and fathers. We don't see people writing for all the Americans who've been murdered by illegal aliens, number one. All we hear is about Trump is this, Trump is a Russian agent, Trump is this, Trump is that, the control media. Now, I want to let you hear. Last night, the guy, Ennis and Larry Elder were calling out George Soros for starting Antifa and backing with the bricks and all that. They bring stacks of bricks. They were saying, basically, Larry Elder and Roger Ennis, I think his name is, that George Soros is funding this Antifa destruction of our country.
Yep.
And I guess there's other players in this field. So I guess there is. But now you're talking about the depopulation of the whites. Well, Bill Gates is out there saying the world's overpopulated. This guy's a billionaire.
Tom, you're correct. But did you watch the Tucker Carlson video where he said that Donald Trump's worst enemy is Jared Kushner?
Yes, I did. And I believe that. I kind of actually believe that.
And I have a video for that. I have a video for that. If you want to wait around here on the network here, if we can get it played here later on, but we got callers backing up here. But if you listen to that, you'll see exactly where Kushner is telling Trump to empty all the prisons and stuff to put these violent criminals back on the street. And of course, this is doing what? Causing more racial tension.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but there's another guy in Trump's administration you don't talk about. His name is Miller, and he's a Jew too, and he don't like Kushner too much.
Isn't he Trump's? He's Trump's speechwriter, right?
Yeah, and they don't look. Miller and Kushner do not see eye to eye on 99% of the stuff. That's what I've been told. I even read that on Drudge Report a while back. That they don't.
This is all theater to distract us from all of this stuff. That they're doing this to us on purpose. And when we're looking at the minutia of all this, and we're missing the bigger picture, the phone lines are loading up. Tom, I'm going to give you maybe another 30 seconds for a closing thought here. You got anything for us for closing?
Yes, sir. I just want to say this guy Noor, Keith Ellison. This guy's a Muslim. He's going to prosecute these officers. Another thing, all four of these officers are not white. One guy's an Oriental, like Steve Elkins said. One of these guys is a Chinese or something. I don't know. And the other guy looks like he's part Chinese too. The other two guys, I guess, are whatever they are. But these are the media's CNN saying, "Oh, these are all white guys." These are not all white guys. They're different ethnic groups. And let's get that straight. And my closing thought is, we got to come together as a nation. If not, like the lady for McEnany said, we're going to end up being all a bunch of fools, and we're going to lose this country. And that's what's going to happen. We are becoming a bunch of fools, allowing the media to control the mind, which started out with that CNN and Ted Turner saying, who was a communist sympathizer, who said, he who controls that media controls the mind. And he's getting all these young people, and that's where this all started, with these young people and the rap music they're listening to. That's all I got to say. The music these young white kids and black kids are listening to is it's a destruction against the United States of America. Total destruction.
Yeah.
With the film music they're listening to.
Yeah, but who are their producers? Yeah, Tom always research who the producers are.
We don't even need to go there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Tom, hey, thanks for the call and the words there. You're absolutely right. We do need to come together as a country. That is for sure. And we'll probably catch you again tomorrow. Thanks for calling. Okay, we're going to move down the line here to Chance in West Virginia. Chance, what's on your mind?
Yes, hello, gentlemen. First off, Steve, I got to tell you something. That sheriff of Polk County, that's in the Lakeland area, you got to check him out. He's been in law enforcement for over.
I did.
Yeah, Grady Judd is his name. He's been in law enforcement for over 40 years. He's a stand-up guy. Now
he's going to get a lot of heat for that, Chance. He's going to get a lot of heat for that. Yeah, well, I think the wording alone, he's going to get a lot of heat for that. What I would have said is that exercise your Second Amendment rights. Your castle, cite the castle law, but I think how he worded that's going to come down pretty hard on him.
Well, you know what I say, Steve? I say Grady Judd for president in 2020. All right, now here's the reason I called. As far as this choir boy, altar boy guy here, Floyd. Now I heard, you guys got to verify this though. Okay. Now I heard on USA News, I believe they broadcast on GCN at the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour. Now listen to this. There was methamphetamine and fentanyl in this guy's system. He also suffered from hypertension and heart disease. And here's a little bit more of his resume. 5 years ago, he was arrested for home invasion and assault and battery. So much for the choir boy image.
Well, wait a minute, Chance. Who's your source on this information, Chance?
This is GCN. The meth and fentanyl and the hypertension and heart disease, that was on the USA News. The other one was on Two Shot. Now, verify this. Don't take my word for it now. I'm just bringing this out to you. He was arrested for home invasion and assault and battery about approximately 5 years ago. He's connected to Houston, Texas somehow. I don't know if he lived there.
Chance is correct on it. Yeah, Chance, you're correct. Remember, I mentioned this at first. He was a mark. He was used.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another thing. Did you know he was an actor in porn movies on a black sex website? His alias, his nom de plume, whatever you call it, is Floyd the Landlord. So this guy is not the big, choir boy they make him out to be. Not that I condone it if he was killed, but I don't even know if he was killed at this point. Right. I don't even know if that was a real policeman, and I don't even know if this guy was a real victim, because I think we're all being played. So all those aspects, gentlemen, check them out. Don't take my word for it.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely. We will try to verify all of these things, and definitely don't take just anything just at face value without having a good look at it. We've definitely had some propaganda through the USA News before, so maybe this is legitimate, maybe it's not, and really, it doesn't really change the scope of the situation that we're in, because this violence has already kicked off and is really just getting out of control, and we need to find a way to cool this off. I'm not really sure what the answer to this is, but it's certainly not a bunch more violence, because that's just going to heat things up to the point that we have an open insurrection and civil war on the streets, and we don't want that.
Yes, it doesn't change the situation, no. But the reason why I brought this up, this is what I heard, it needs to be verified.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
if they're that vile and wicked to stage something like this, with the backgrounds of all these characters like this, it's to cause every major city in this country to be set ablaze. This is really evil. And that's the reason why I brought this out, and try and verify this. And something tells me, you can add all these things to the list too, and maybe that'll finally wake people up. They should be awake already, but that, might help. Okay, thank you for letting me talk now, and God bless, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Chance. We appreciate it. And people are waking up. We've got programs like What Really Happened Here. We've got Perception Management and Off the Beaten Path and the National Intel Report. We've got a lot of really good programs here on RBN, and then we're bringing the truth to the people, and people are hungry for the truth because they're tired of being lied to. Most of these things are getting quite transparent that even people that don't listen to RBN that I talk to, I'm trying to get them to start to listen, but that's neither here nor there. They still look at the stuff at face value coming from the mainstream media and just roll their eyes going, it's all a bunch of lies. We're being lied to. We're being lied to. We're being lied to. Okay, Steve, you got a comment, and then go ahead and take us out to the break.
Well, I'll get it in as fast as I can get it in, but the independent media is the way to go. We know the mainstream media is all on the same page, and of course, they've turned out to be, pretty much sound bites and disinformation and innuendo and suggestive, this and that. Independent media is much more reliable. I know I'm accountable, reliable. I eat some crow when I eat some crow, and haven't in a while. But I also noticed, we've all talked about this before in our own shows, that YouTube is taking down a lot of information, especially with physicians, when it comes down to bringing health. They're going to keep you stupid, keep you ignorant.
Yep, we're getting censored, that's for sure. We'll be right back here on RBN. Yep, we are being censored on YouTube and all the social media networks all over the place. It is an epidemic, and we're going to have to respond in kind to this eventually to be able to counter all this stuff. That's why it is so important to support RBN. All right, let's go back to the phones. Jewel in Tennessee, what is on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to chime in about all this burning cities and everything. There's a site, it's called healthmasters.com, and I used to order products from them. And they meet a lot of truckers. There were some truckers that did not want to go into the cities, so they parked their trucks outside the cities. And they watched somebody was going through and dropping pallet loads of bricks in all these different cities and just leaving them there. They were also unloading bus loads of people, and the guy watched them. And so the trucker got on and informed another trucker, and this seemed to be a pattern the last few days. Let's see what it was. A cartoon, Family Guy, from 1996. They put this on there. There was a cartoon of a cop dressed as a cop, and he had his legs around a black man's neck. And of course, that was courtesy of the globalists. They always have to let you know what they're going to do ahead of time. And I will call back in another time to talk about the smartphones that gave me cancer.
Okay,
So,
Jewel.
anyway, God bless.
God bless you too,
Yeah.
Jewel. And definitely we will do a program at some point about the smartphones and the 5G and the cancer, and hang in there. I'm sorry to hear that you've had so many problems with that. Stay safe out there. Steve, you have a quick comment before we go on?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to point this out. Keith and I were talking about this, and I get this from a listener about last week sometime, but I've seen it before, but I just wanted to bring it out that there's a whole industry around hiring demonstrators. And I'm looking at a website advertisement here called crowdsondemand.com. I'm just going to read you a little bit of the excerpt of what their duties are. Are you looking to create a buzz anywhere in the United States at crowds or demand or provide our clients with protests, rallies, flash mobs, paparazzi events, and other inventive PR stunts? These services are available across the country in every major U.S. city, every major U.S. metro area, and even some smaller cities as well. We provide everything, including the people, the materials, there's your bricks, and even the ideas. You can come to us with a specific plan of action, or we can make it happen. Or you can approach us with a general idea, and we can help you plan the strategy, then execute it. This is a website. It's called crowdsondemand.com. There are people in the business of creating chaos. Now, I'm not sure why these people exist. I'm not sure why. Well, we have a rogue FBI, so I don't think they're going to investigate this. But this is something definitely to look into. And I'm sure that's what's going on right now, currently.
Idly teen
across
subversion.
the cities.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's exactly what's going on. Okay, let's go on down the list here. Paul in New Jersey, what is on your mind?
Hey, fellas, I was walking down the street the other day, and I walked past a pile of bricks, and I didn't feel compelled to, throw it through a store window, huh? What do you know?
Well, good for you.
Hey, and this is what I don't like is, come on, no apologies for the rioters. They should be shot on sight. Come on, let's be hardcore right-wingers the way we're supposed to be. We're old white guys. We're supposed to be hardcore right-wingers. Now, listen, however, if it's not my store in your city and I'm living in a red district, right, I don't care if your store burns down. If you want to protect your store, get yourself a rolling steel gate and put that on the front of your store. And if you don't have that, sit in there with a shotgun. That's all.
They can still firebomb it, though. That's a problem, Paul. They can still firebomb it.
Well, then you just listen. You got the right gun. They're not going to get near your place.
Yeah,
right?
but now you're back to Umbrella Boy, because remember, that was a cop that was going around smashing windows to get people to provoke them. So, you're just playing right into their hands.
Yeah, but notice, after he did that, though, I don't think Umbrella Boy set the fire after that. So he's not operating on his own. Like, somebody might drop off a pile of bricks, but only savages would think of picking up the brick and throwing it through a store window. And you can't tolerate this. It's not an apology just because one guy might be a cop or a fed. That doesn't justify anything.
No, but like Jewel had mentioned, though, Paul, that was also on The Simpsons, too, where it showed the riots and stuff. You got to remember that most of your viewing audience is in their early 20s and 30s, like that, watching cartoons.
Let's hold that thought. Paul, hold on to the line. We'll be back with some closing thoughts from you. This is RBN, What Really Happened, and we'll be back after these short messages. And yet he ends up selling French fries, man. That's just sad. I saw the video on that. I love the song, but I was really kind of rooting for him being the pirate and all that stuff. All right, let's go back real quick to Paul in New Jersey and get some last comments before we move on. Paul, close it out for us.
Yeah, Freud said that sometimes a cigar is a cigar. So just because some Negro gets choked to death by a white cop doesn't mean this is all part of some grand conspiracy. It doesn't. The fact of the matter is having a Negro getting choked to death by a cop is a good thing. It's a good cautionary tale for blacks. Because as we know, they have a habit of generating crimes. They're a walking, talking crime wave, just like what Hillary Clinton said. They breed super predators, fellas. Let's be honest about it. The crime statistics are damning. Even though, like a lot of it seems like talk show hosts after RBN, I don't know why they're trying to mollycoddle the blacks and continue this policy of trying to be nice to them and sucker favor and being polite towards them. I doubt American blacks are donating any significant money to John Stadmiller as we speak. So come on, please, be honest. And lastly, let's be honest, too. Nobody wants to unite with these people. Nobody does. And any of you guys, you sit there, you all say, oh, we got to unite, we got to unite. Go buy yourself a house down in one of these urban areas, right? But you won't. So all that talk about uniting is phony. We all want to get away from them, and we all know it. All us white people. We sold our houses. My aunt did in Long Island back in the day. They sold their houses and took a loss to get away from the blacks because the blacks have a penchant for violence. So stop trying to play the liberal role here, guys.
No, I think
the fact of the matter is we're white people.
Paul, you're way off
men.
base. You're way off base.
Okay.
You're way off base.
Go ahead,
You act like you're generalizing. You're generalizing, Paul, that all blacks are this way. My next door neighbor works for the government. He's a prison guard. His wife works for the post office. They're both black. They're very nice people. You're generalizing that we all want to get away from Blackie. You are so wrong. You are so
you
wrong.
Don't, but hey, remember 1352, Steve. You know what that means, right?
No, tell me what
13% of
1352
blacks
is.
can commit over half of all the murders in this country, guys. And just because you don't say about it or talk about it on your show doesn't mean we whiteys know about it and we talk to each other about it and we move away from blacks. And now because of these riots, people are getting out of the cities, mostly because of blacks. And yeah, the Antifa kids are troubles, but they're just
there's
spoiled.
a whole
really making
lot of
this a
other
racial thing
reasons
in a
to
bad
get
way.
away from the crowded cities,
But
the crowded
fellas-
slave labor camps. Paul, thanks for your call.
I didn't know I was a liberal. Did you know I was a liberal?
No, I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize
and
I was a liberal.
I
Keith, are you a
I
liberal?
didn't realize trying to have a little bit of kindness and compassion for our fellow human beings, was all that bad of a thing. We're not taking all this stuff and going, oh, we need to kowtow to their agendas or
No,
anything like that.
not at all.
We need to treat people like we want to be treated. I mean, it's the golden rule, and it kind of makes
right.
sense.
That's
So let's go ahead and move on down the line here because we need to get these calls knocked out here before the end of the show. We're starting to kind of run low on time. Fred in Michigan, what is on your mind today?
Right. Crowds on demand. That's good, Steve. You and Keith ought to investigate crowds on demand, find out who put it together. Is it really real? Maybe there's got to be, an investigative protocol for that. You might even want to connect with the sheriff in Polk County and bring that to his attention. Speaking of sheriffs, Tucker Carlson interviewed a sheriff, Doug Schuler of Mojave County, Arizona, 2-3 weeks ago, and it was Doug Schuler who declared that no way would he enforce fraudulent, fallacious executive orders by the governor when there obviously is no legislative act mandate compelling compliance by business owners nor the general citizen populace regarding executive orders, especially when they come from Anthony Fauci, who, by the way, Anthony Fauci, his recommendations, that's all they are. Same with the executive orders, merely recommendations.
Yes.
Sheriff Doug Schuler highlighted all that. This guy should be chronicled. He should be, his declaration, that interview of 6 or 7 minutes, that should be aired every other day on RBN. There should be a Patriot Silver Bullet Proclamation registry whereby people can go to RBN and look at these Silver Bullet proclamations and the stellar patriots who have brought them out or made them, like RFK Jr. I mentioned the Clover Chronicle from it's the 9th of April this year, 09/04/2020.
Okay, did we just lose Fred?
I like it.
Yeah, I think we just lost Fred. Okay, Fred, call back tomorrow, and we will talk about this some more. You know, we got a bunch more stuff to get through here. Before we get to Dustin, so Dustin, hold on with us for just a couple of minutes here. Keith, go ahead and play that clip that you wanted to play so we can get that in. That way we can take a little bit more time with Dustin on the flip side of this. So,
okay.
Roll it.
All right. To set this up, though, first, Trump was elected because he wanted to make America great again. He wanted to change and rebuild this country. His biggest problem, which he was fighting, was immigration, illegal immigration. Let's put it that way. We have Jared Kushner, who's supposed to be his son-in-law, who's turning against him by having him release all these prisoners and stuff, which many of them are Hispanics and blacks and stuff like that. You know, and that's all because politicians have always depressed the economy to either force people into the military or to keep the political system going within the slave system of the prison. You know, so anyway, this here is a video that everyone should listen to and understand what's going on behind Trump's back, and what the real cause is.
Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, the great social activist who marched with King, once asserted, "We are a people in whom the past endures." Our oppression in Egypt lives within us. Our exile, our expulsion, our isolation, our internment, all inform our Jewish identity and our Jewish commitments. If we take that identity and those commitments seriously, we cannot regard the human tragedy unfolding on our borders, the horrific conditions to which migrant families seeking better lives for their children have been subjected, with anything less than moral fury. And now we are informed that Sunday, Immigration and Customs Enforcement will undertake additional efforts in cities around the country, including New York, to pursue the undocumented. Our sacred narratives and historic experiences call upon us to respond, whether by participating in any number of rallies, including one downtown tonight, by volunteering with immigrant justice groups, or by writing members of Congress. Yesterday, I and 3 other of New York City's senior rabbis, informed by our deep conviction rooted in Jewish and American values that we must love our neighbors as ourselves, sent the following to the New York Times. "We are outraged by the deportation raids reportedly scheduled to begin in New York City on Sunday. These raids will terrorize our friends, neighbors, and families in the immigrant community, and they risk separating parents and children. Local law enforcement must refuse to participate or assist with these ICE actions. New York City has long welcomed immigrants from around the world. We won't stop now." "We are a people in whom the past endures," said Heschel, "in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We won't stop now, not until all those fleeing oppression in their native lands are able to sing as the Israelites once sang on the shores of freedom's sea."
That goes to show you the pure hypocrisy that we have in Israel of Jared Kushner and his peace deal, in which the Palestinians don't have that opportunity, where the American taxpayers have paid for the wall in Jordan to push the Palestinians out. And here we have these rabbis here in the United States who are openly thwarting all of Donald Trump's efforts to keep immigration out, and they want them in.
Yep, absolutely. There. Hey, let's real quick go back to Fred, Michigan for a quick closing comment. We're kind of running out of time, and the phone lines are loaded up, Fred. So you got cut off. Give us a few seconds of let us know some closing thoughts there, brother.
Barbara Lerner Specter, remember her?
Yep.
The Jews will be hated because of their exclusive role in the international forced migration project, words to that effect. Barbara Lerner Specter. And then Henry Makow recently did a stellar scholarship on creative destruction. You go to his site, henrymakow.com, and you search creative destruction. This is what he chronicles, being Talmudic, Kabbalah, subterfuge. Tex Mars has got it well documented in his books, which are banned by Jeff Bezos from Amazon. Holy Serpent of the Jujus. Don't read that, audience. Holy Serpent of the Jujus. DNA science in the Jewish bloodline. You must not learn that only 12% of any indigenous Juju enclave populace test positive to the Israelite DNA, according to their own geneticist, Ariel Oppenheim.
Oh, Fred, it's all been a big giant usurpation, and we really are running low on time. And I really hate to cut you off on here, but I got the callers I want to try to get to here before the end of the show. But yeah, I hear you, brother. I know it's a bunch of usurpation. The Khazars from Middle Asia, took this stuff over. There's no blood relation on here, and they're the ones that are being anti-Semitic, attacking the Semitic people living in Palestine. So we're just going to leave it at that. Okay, Dustin in New Jersey, you're on the air. What's on your mind, brother?
For all you haters out there of Doomsday Dustin, how you guys doing?
Doing all right, Dustin. How you doing? What's on your mind?
All right. Hey, talking about the Palestinians, what do you make of them killing that autistic, mentally challenged Palestinian child?
That's
they
disgusting.
Shot dead. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've heard about that. That's disgusting.
Yeah. This is I mean, not all people in this country are good people. Not all police officers are good people. Not everybody's bad. This whole black Asians did it. You see how they're blaming the Chinese and the Russians? They're behind this whole... Come on, guys.
And you saw, where's it, in
Dustin,
Boston?
I want to mention something real quick here, Dustin. There was Prime Minister Shamir was quoted as saying one time how he despised the Palestinians. He said, one Israeli life is worth 100 Palestinian lives. He actually said, if they oppose us when we try to take the land and push them back and take their land, we will crush them beneath our feet like grasshoppers. That philosophy still continues. That still continues in Israel.
And that's who's training your law enforcement today.
Yeah.
Didn't we do that to the Indians?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No,
what about the American Indians?
Justin, they did it. Everyone has a choice to
government.
Everyone has a choice to do.
I say we did it, but it's they, but it's...
That's right.
A lot of us sat by and did nothing about it. Like now, all this riots going on, for what? It's not about police brutality anymore, guys.
No,
it's
not
about
at all.
economics and other things.
Yeah, we have police,
okay?
Dustin. We have police that actually was bowing down and praying with the rioters there.
Yeah, North Carolina. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
is that a bad thing, though, or a good thing?
No, it's a good thing because it's a solidarity where people realize that. Just like those French protesters, I said they should just roll out a great big huge mirror and point it back towards the cops and say, "This is what your children are going to face: a police state."
And it's not only going out over here; it's going on in Britain and Canada. There's a lot of pissed off people in the world.
Yes.
And you throw that on with the, I know some of you don't really think this virus is as real as it is.
The virus is real. They're just overblowing all the numbers.
It's real. It was planned.
Yeah, it's very real virus, and it's probably
real.
more virulent than what they're admitting to, and it's not as deadly as what they are saying. But yes, it is very real.
Isn't it real? Isn't it weird how this is happening at this moment in time. Everything's happening. You know, when it comes down to this, before I get off the phone, we're an empire in decline, and we're in decline. The same with the British Empire, and things are changing. Either, Steve, you mentioned economic reset. I don't know. A changing of the guard. But you feel it. Something has changed. Something's going on, and this protest is not going away anytime soon. Groups dropping off pallets of bricks. Is that the CIA? Is that a White Helmets operation? We don't know. I don't know. Something's going on, though. You know,
Dustin, they actually did the same thing, though. And Dave, you and I talked about this with Steve Stars, how the government, the United States government in California, actually in Oakland, had dumped off a whole load of, actually a car full of ammunition and rifles. And they did it in the inner city of Oakland too.
Chicago too.
Yeah, and they also did it there, but they didn't. In Oakland, that's where the base was for the Black Panthers. So they basically fuel them, give them what they need, and provoke them, and then they have reason to go in and get them.
That's very true. Okay, Dustin, I'm sorry. Brother, I got to let you go. We got two more calls we got to get to here before the end of the show. Dustin, thank you. Give us a call back tomorrow. We'll talk to you later. We're going to take this quick break, and we'll be right back here. What really happened, RBN? All right, welcome back. Final segment of the show here. What really happened on a Tuesday? Got a couple more calls. I want to try to get to these quick, so be courteous to the other caller here, because we kind of get both of you in here. Ken in New York, what's on your mind?
Ken from New York. Instead of putting all these little fires out, I think if somebody had the gumption to put the big fire out, and that is get rid of George Soros.
Yes.
He should be tried for treason.
Yes.
Stop the money, and they'll all go home.
I completely agree.
That's all I have for you. Good night.
Wow, thanks. Short, sweet, to the point, Ken. You're absolutely right. And all of the ilk, the Clinton Foundation, and them funding Antifa, and all the rest of these, people with all this big money going into this. Yes, absolutely. You go at the root of the problem. All right, that brings us to Lenny in California. Lenny, what's on your mind?
Yes, to the caller who called in and suggests that you look into the founder of Crowds on Demand. His name is Adam Swart. That's Adam, S-W-A-R-T. I suggest all the listeners get to it as quick as possible and get all the information you can, see where he leads to. Okay? And to Paul, hey, I hope we don't meet, but in case we do, well, I figure in your state of mind, I'm just going to start shooting. You don't have to worry about choking me at all.
Love you, Lenny.
Open a can of whoop ass on him, Lenny.
We get it, because we really need to try to live together and treat each other good and all that stuff, and there's just no excuse for that, because there are great people in all sectors, in all races, and there's bad people in all sectors, in all races, and we need to go after the behavior and look past this skin color thing. I thought we were past that in the 80s and the 90s and all that stuff.
We were.
And they keep bringing this stuff up. They keep funding this crap. We look at people as individuals, as what they are, the content of their character, and that's what we need to be. We need to get past this stuff when we were, and we need to remind these people that are paying for all these things, the George Soroses and stuff, that we do not appreciate being divided from the rest of our brothers and sisters. This is unacceptable.
Dave, I have a confession. Keith, I have a confession. I'm going to do it right now. I discriminate. I do. I discriminate, and it's not based on race. It's based on bad behavior. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't see people in color.
Yeah. Well, here under Obama
can be changed.
Yeah. Under Obama, though, where's the outrage from the American blacks over here as Obama bombed over in Somalia, killing thousands of blacks?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lenny, what else is on your mind today? I guess Lenny dropped. Okay. Well, hey, thanks for calling, Lenny. Appreciate you there, brother. And yes, this whole racism thing, it's just way overblown, and they're using it as an excuse, just like they're using the coronavirus as an excuse, to do all their agendas to destroy this nation. We used to be a strong, proud nation, and we have been falling for all of this stuff, all the lies and all the deception and all the agendas. And we really need to wake up and quit listening to any of this stuff. We need to go about our lives, take care of ourselves, take care of our neighbors, and love one another. The golden rule, it's not who has the gold makes the rules, is treat people like you want to be treated. Respect people. That goes a long way. Just have a little bit of respect, because when you go out with a chip on your shoulder, automatically disrespecting people and being angry, that's exactly what you're going to get back. You go out with violence, that's exactly what you're going to get back. It's disgusting. All right,
if you want change, look in the mirror.
Absolutely. I agree. And with that, we're going to leave that for another day. We'll be back tomorrow, the Three Stooges, and I think Steve Elkins will be sitting in my chair tomorrow. So stay safe, everybody, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Good night.
Good night.
Aloha.